Welcome to season 2 of Chats from the Chest Freezer. Oh, it's 3.9 degrees in here, so let's not stuff around and let's dive into the new season. All right, before we do dive into this great interview with Dave Proctor, a bit of a disclaimer. I interviewed Dave way back in January when life was a lot different to what it is today. Unfortunately, of course, Big's Backyard isn't going ahead in 2020, but luckily for Queensland and Brisbane, the last one standing held by AAA Racing is going ahead. So if you find some of the things in here a little bit sort of, hang on, that timeline doesn't work, that's because it was filmed what feels like a lifetime ago. Hope you enjoy the chat. Dave Proctor, thank you very much for joining me in another Chats from the Chest Freezer. I've spoken to quite a few Ultrarunners, and so many people are putting you up in this almost like godlike atmosphere. It's amazing to have you here.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam. I don't know who those people are that you've talked to, but obviously they're delirious from running too many loops in Laz's backyard.
Yeah, well, when you've got people like Maggie Gittel, Will Hayward, and Katie Wright saying things like that, and how impressed they are by your pedigree, I think they're the kind of people who really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, absolutely they do. They all had excellent results at last year's, 2018's, Big's Backyard. I think that they were all capable of more. I think we all are. I don't know Maggie is, because she of course didn't have her limit met. There's only one that doesn't have their limit met. But it's a really great group, and everybody wins races around the world to all show up in Big's Backyard to have one final show off. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. Now, you're a bit of an anomaly compared to those guys in that you're a bloody fast runner. You hold the Canadian record in the 24, 48, 72 hour records. You've held the 24-hour world record on a treadmill. You currently hold the 12-hour and the 100-miler record on a treadmill. There's some pretty impressive stats right there.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sam. I hang around with really fast marathoners, so I don't really still consider myself fast in comparison to the 210 and 220 marathoners, but I can certainly hold a 230, 225 marathon. But it's there's not many in the ultra running world that are kind of running those speeds with putting enough miles behind them to get through 100 miles and 24-hour races. The 24-hour race, I think when it comes to backyard style, I think it really does. There's a lot of really good back and forth with that. So I see that some of the world's best 24-hour runners are going to start to transfer over to more of a Big's Backyard style.
Why do you think that?
Because I think that overall, that speed with 24 hours to be able to maintain a relative pace for a consistent period of time. In my experience at Big's this past year, I came in with a very different model than take Maggie or Will or Katie did. And I was moving still in my zone 1, so still in a very comfortable space, but I was moving, quicker, and I was able to get a lot more time off of my feet. I remember seeing statistics after the fact, and I think I had like 5 or 6 hours more off of my feet than Maggie did at the 50-hour mark. And so what that means is you're getting more sleep. Your feet are up. You're getting the inflammation out. You're just in a better space when you have 10 or 15 minutes between loops instead of 5 to 10.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your 100-miler treadmill record you did in 12 hours 32, and Big's Backyard, the whole concept is built on 100 miles in 24 hours. You can obviously go, sort of consistently pull out 32, 35-minute laps, and we did see at Big's, you getting, even at 44 hours, I think saw you got more than 20 minutes rest. Uh,
Hmm.
Obviously, still being able to fly through and keep that nice steady gait. Uh, but it's a completely different race to running 12 and a half hour 100 miler.
Oh, absolutely it is. But, I think there has to be, and I think this is where, Camille Herron coming out next year, Courtney Dauwalter is a really great 24-hour runner. Johan Steen, this is maybe why he has the world record with backyard, is because he can hold a good pace and a good clip at a very, very comfortable space. And so, I think the difference is if you can run 100 miles in 20 hours, or if you can run 100 miles in 14 hours, the step difference between the 14-hour and the 20-hour, and if you were to drop that down to every hour running that 6.7 kilometer loop, it does give you a substantial more amount of time off of your feet, and that recovery is huge. And we can get to the kind of the fueling and a lot of my fueling strategies and on and so forth, and how you kind of play with that as well too, with having a little bit more time, because that plays into the structure of the race itself too.
Yeah, I was only talking to Maggie Gattel yesterday, who obviously won the 2019 Bigs
Hmm.
Backyard. And she was pulling out sort of about 54-minute laps, 52-minute laps. So only getting 5, 6 minutes rest on every one of those day laps. And I think because Big's Backyard and the last one standing format is such a new format that everybody's still doing a lot of trial and error with their strategies.
Absolutely. And, I even look at guys like Will, and jokingly and not as well too, he didn't look good for the longest time. And, and I kept thinking there's no way. And I remember even talking to Maggie kind of 30 to 40 hours in, and saying there's no way this guy's going to be here in 3 or 4 hours, but yet there he was. And he looked even better as he got after the 50-hour and closer to the 60-hour mark. So, everybody's got a different strategy. Everybody kind of plays with something different. Either way, the first 24 hours, nothing happens.
Yeah.
You just get through those 24 hours so you can get into the next 24 hours and into the next 24 hours, because that's when the real race begins. The race begins, for first place when there's, I don't know, 8 people left in the ring.
Now you got to 52 hours, which is such a brilliant achievement. Uh, but you certainly can run much further than that, and
Hmm.
you certainly holding the 72-hour Canadian record at 500 kilometers. But also, sort of just wanting to digress a little bit because you attempted the Trans Canadian record, speed record, 7,200 kilometers, and the record currently stands at I think about 66 days.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no, yeah, it's 72 days. Yeah.
72
Hmm.
days,
Hmm.
72 days. So you tried that back in 2018, but
Hmm.
tell me about that because it was firstly a remarkable achievement. Firstly, to step on the starting line and go for it.
Yeah, well, thanks. You know, it's a mark that I've had my eye on for the longest time. The Trans Canadian Speed Record. Not a lot of people know about this ultra running legend named Al Howie, a Canadian. And in 1991, he ran across the country, averaging 101 kilometers a day for 72 days in a row, no days off. Um, that just it's mind-boggling, right? Because Canada really is a huge country, second biggest country in the world, and 7,200 kilometers is a long run, and it's quite mountainous, and the weather, we're in the north. It can be, even the summers get really quite hot, but you get really weird weather patterns. Um, Unfortunately, in 2018, I was setting forth to run 108 kilometers every day, and I was doing that up until to a point, and I ended up suffering an injury to a disc in my lower back. And then it got really, really bad when I entered into the province of Manitoba. And medically, I just needed to pull the plug. I've got 3 young kids. And really, what ended up happening as I was losing function of my internal organs, and that's not it's not a reasonable space. I'm willing to put a lot on the line, but I'm not willing to put that on the line. And so, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to be attempting it again here in May, where I'm going to start off on the other side of the country in St. John's, and even just Newfoundland, the province of Newfoundland. It takes you 9 days to run across an island to get to the mainland. It's a phenomenally difficult run. But the reasoning for that, and outside of the fact that I do want to break the Trans-Canadian speed record and really have a truly a meaningful experience doing that, find out a lot about myself along the way. But is also I've got a charity here in Canada called Outrun Rare, and if anybody was watching, or this documentary is going to be put out here fairly soon, you'll see my orange shirt, the Outrun Rare shirt, and my running cowboy hat. We've ended up designing that cowboy hat with a local cowboy hat manufacturer here in Calgary, and it's the very first ever running specific cowboy hat. And so it's called the Outrunner. And I've got an 11-year-old son who's got a rare disease, and a super long story, but I'll keep it as short as I can. It took us over 6 years in Canada to get his diagnosis, and that broke my heart. And you like to think that running is hard, and it's not. Dealing with a sick child is hard, especially when there's limited support and access within the country. That we like to brag about how great our healthcare system is here in Canada, but it's not really great for families living with rare disease, because we're the only developed country in the world without a rare disease strategy or an orphan drug plan. And so we have a very famous runner back in 1980 who attempted to run across Canada with one leg, named Terry Fox. And the Terry Fox Foundation has since raised over $800 million for cancer research. And this is out of a country with just over 30 million people. And so what we plan to do with Outrun Rare is to do a lot of what Terry Fox did, to try to emulate that and to try to lift up a population, and to show average Canadians that we rare families need support too, and we need access just like the rest of all the sick people. We need medical inclusion. And so really this run across Canada, we're going to try to raise millions of dollars, political advocacy, awareness, all those things, at the same time as doing something really hard, which is running 105 kilometers a day for 67 days in a row. So and after that, hopefully I'll be in good enough shape to put in a good effort in Big's backyard in October.
Yeah. Now, your 2018, when you attempted the Trans-Canadian record, I was hearing about you talking about the effect that your body went through, particularly in the first 7 days of this adaptation, but also the testing that they did in the MRI on your heart. Can you tell me first about those first 7 days of how your body sort of transitioned?
Absolutely. And this is where I struggle with even backyard, right? Is because, okay, yeah, you're running for 2, 3, 4 days, whatever that is. In my experience with running across Canada and doing multi-day events, is that the adaptation is a working document. You're constantly adapting. And that's what we do when we work out. We go and create adaptive changes within our body and mind and our gut and all those things to help you better perform on the day. But over the first maybe 7 to 10 days running across Canada, and keep in mind as well too, the first 7 to 10 days was running across the Canadian Rockies, which was, you got some big climbs out there. What happened was, every day was a struggle. And even on day 3 and day 5, I was thinking, wow, if I'm feeling this bad on day 5, how on earth am I going to run another, 61 days like this? And it almost seemed impossible, right? But right around the 7 to 10 day mark, what happened was things started to get easier. And I was running up Rogers Pass, a really big climb in the Canadian Rockies. And, I was running really well and my pace was picking up running uphill. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, this is different. This isn't what I expected. And then, the next day was easier, and the next day was easier, and you're thinking, okay, something's changing, something's clicking. Um, and yeah, by the time I got into Calgary, which was 10 days into the run across Canada, I went in for an MRI of my heart, and that was a study that we predetermined prior to this. We were doing MRIs prior to, and then in Calgary, and it was really cool. My heart before running across Canada was pumping out 8.2 liters of blood out from my left ventricle to perform its regular normal functions, right? So when you're at rest, like you and I are right now, your heart is pumping out a certain volume of blood to be able to perform your regular functions. The most fit people in the world pump out a lot more than the less fit people, right? So my heart was pumping out 8.2 liters of blood per minute at rest. And so when I came into Calgary, and I went into the MRI unit, it was a bit alarming for them, and because I was pumping out 14.4 liters of blood per minute at rest, which is by far the highest human recording ever. And I think it just shows that the human adaptive model is crisp and clear. That humans can do this, but you have to force it. Your body in the first 7 days, in my opinion, Sam told me, stop, 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 stop. What are you doing? And right around 10 days in, it was said, okay, this guy's not going to stop. We better create these adaptive changes and allow this to happen. And I think that's why we're the dominant species on this planet. It's because
Does
we can adapt.
Now, did that sort of once you stopped running, did that go back down to the 8 liters?
Yeah, 8.2 liters 1 month after I stopped running. So it's incredible. It showed that, okay, while the demand was there, it was able to adapt and give you what you needed. And I'm sure those adaptive changes happened within your tendons and your bone structure and your skin and your digestive tissues. You bet. But we weren't studying those. We were studying the cardiovascular tissues, and it was cool to see it go back to what was normal as well too, with no harm, with no damage as well. Um, yeah, it just shows what us humans are capable of, I believe.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Now, those
Mm.
obviously you had a lot of moments where you're wanting to quit on that run.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
where does your mind go, and what keeps you going?
Well, a lot of places, right? Number one, with my son. Um, I seriously, would do anything for him. And I've always said that, life has to be better in the next 10 years than it was in the last 10 years. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not a smart man, right? Um, I'm not a doctor, but I can support those doctors by giving them what they need. Um, but then as well too, I don't know, like I'm trying to rewrite my own book as well too. It's probably the same thing you, Sam, and anybody who's reading or who's watching this interview as well too, is because you're watching it for a reason, and you're uncovering that. Wait 1 second. The body is only capable of enough of what the mind tells it. I remember having a conversation out there with Maggie nearing the end of the run, and I said, the mind only knows two things: the pictures you draw for it and the words that you tell it. And it's really that simple. So, when we paint these terrible, horrible pictures for ourselves, um, that's exactly what is reality. And your body will always categorically always move away from pain. It just always moves away from pain. If I said, "Hey, put your hand in that fire," you'll say no because it's painful. So why would you call running painful or suffering or agony? Because you'll categorically every single time move away from it. And that's one of the things that I noticed about Maggie is that even with the cheerleaders at the Big's backyard, and you know, that's one of the things I noticed about her was that she never really ever said, "Hey, I'm in pain," or "Yeah, I'm suffering here." You'd hear other people talk like that, and then they would be out within 3 or 4 laps. Um, this She was just very comfortable in this state, and that was pretty cool to see. Will, the very same thing, I think. So I'm trying to rewrite the my own story of how I trend how I vision this. um, you know is it really suffering and agony or is it really kind of filling your bucket full of meaningful experiences in this world? And that, life is worth living. I've got this app on my phone. I highly suggest it. It's called We Croak. It's the best $2 you've ever spent. And it's an app that reminds you 5 times a day. It sends you a text message 5 times a day that you're going to die. It reminds you about your own imminent mortality. And, there's an old Buddhist saying that says, those who contemplate their own mortality more than 5 times a day tend to lead happier lives. Because if you know you're going to die, you tend to live, right? Um, and living is going beyond that 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 hour mark at Bigs, and surprising yourself and being present in that moment, and not fearing the future and not worrying about the past, but living in that moment. Um, so, sorry, you asked the question, what do you think about out there when you're running? It's a lot of things, right? But there are a lot
Yeah.
of positive things that lean into having an experience that you want to have that will ultimately make you successful.
Um, you alluded to it earlier at the end of your 2018 Trans Canadian record, where you spoke about, basically sort of internally starting to shut down, and you sort of thought about your kids. Uh, Explain to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and so when I was running in across the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border, my disc issue wasn't just relaying pain down my legs and numbness and tingling and all those things that go along with disc issues. Um, but it started to compress on a different area called the cauda equina, and that's an area that ends up coming around the pelvic girdle and starts to to disrupt internal organs. So my very first moment with this issue was me running along, and all of a sudden my legs were wet, and I said, "Oh, that's weird. Did I spill a water bottle?" Or I was like, "No, I pissed myself." Well, that's not good because I didn't feel that. And then it happened again, and it happened again, and then I went number two, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's not okay either." And so later that night, I ended up calling one of my medical doctor friends, and he ended up giving me some advice that you know this when you start having compression of the cauda equina, it gets very bad very quick, and then it becomes lifelong, and we don't want you in diapers the rest of your life. I'm 39 years old, and I've got a family to look after. Um, and as well too, I've got another year to run, and another year to run, and another year to run. So it's a difficult decision of when to quit. Um, but I still do think that it was the right decision, but it doesn't make it easy.
Uh, in December 2019, I was the first person in the world to attempt to swim the English Channel. Sort of a winter crossing of the English Channel. The water was only 10 degrees, and I got to a point after at almost 3.5 hours where uh, I could feel hypothermia setting in, and I was starting to get quite disorientated. And I've got kids of my own, and that was what popped into my head. I could keep going further, but the further I go medically, I put myself into greater danger. And making the decision to pull myself out of the channel was actually quite easy. And I think it's
Mhm.
also, and what I've noticed interviewing others is that ultra athletes don't have a fear of failure. When you're pushing your body so
Mhm.
far, you're taking yourself to new limits all the time. And because of that, you are going to get to a moment of failure. Uh, when you made that call to end your Trans Canadian run, tell me sort of the sense. Is there a sense of failure? Is there a sense of achievement, or just a sense of gratitude that you could get out there and show your kids, your family, and sort of fans what could happen?
I think a bit of everything. And anybody who's damn passionate about what they're doing, and that thinks as much time and effort and emotional strength and vulnerability into what they're doing, is going to feel everything. You put all of your emotions in, and you're going to get all of your emotions out. So, there were times that I wanted to dig a 10-foot hole and go hide in it. There were other times that I wanted to spend time with my children and just be, and show them gratitude, for being with me along this path. There were times that I wanted to continue advocating for rare disease. There were other times that I just wanted to quit and say, hey, okay, I did my part. Now on to the next thing. It's really hard to to answer that, because I think every 2 or 3 hours you'd have a very different emotion, and you just didn't know what to do with it. But I know there's that saying, invite your negative thoughts out for tea, because those negative thoughts are there for a reason. You should definitely sit down with them, hear them out, ask them, for evidence that this is true, or have a conversation with that, and then you'll probably exit as a stronger person. So it's a hard process to do, to really, you know, that negative thought inside of your head when you're doing that, long run or the interval work, to say, okay, give me some empirical evidence that you're right, that I am a failure. And even if they give you some pretty good, pretty good evidence, still, it's still not enough.
And I guess it's along those lines. It's your passion and your
Mm.
why that gets you through all those really crappy moments where you do question yourself. Being a swimmer, you're up at 4 a.m. every single morning, and uh, because of the routine and because my passion is so great for it, that I never now question why I'm getting up at 4. And I guess it'd be the same for you. You have such a great passion and such a huge why, keeps you going
Mhm.
and enables you to, I guess, uh, battle those negative thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to, everything I do when it comes to training, or when it comes to parenting my children, or when it comes to being in my workplace and working, I try to frame everything with the same, the same frame, the purpose, joy, love, and gratitude. And you know, I've always thought that, people that did extraordinary things when it came to physical endurance feats, um, they had this inner fight inside, the David Goggins of the world, where it's, rip and destroy, and everything's hard and painful and suffering. But then, I ended up listening to this really awesome podcast last week. It's my favorite podcast. It's Michael Gervais' Finding Mastery. And I forget the guy's name, Colin somebody or other. He traveled across Antarctica solo. And you listen to his story, and everything was so positive. And he found so much strength through positivity. And and that's one of the neat things, is that the better I get at running, and I make friends with really incredible runners. I noticed that 99% of them are insanely positive. And that's what I find is the common denominator amongst everybody, is it's not what they do, it's how they view what they're doing. And it's pretty spectacular, because I mean, it takes training of the mind, of course, to stop thinking negatively, and stop turning on the news and making fun of Donald Trump just because it's so easy, because hey, I want to rip somebody else down to make myself feel better. But in order to become a better runner, because in something like backyard, you will be tested, and you are no better than your default. And if your default isn't love, and it is envy, fear, jealousy, hatred, all those things that exist in the world outside of love, then that's what you're bound to expect.
Now, I think for everybody who's watching this has to get on to runproctor.com. Dave did a TEDx talk, I think it was a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely fantastic. Talks about a lot of what we've been speaking about, and you speak so eloquently, and I think everybody will certainly realize that. And now I guess we should actually get on to talking about bigs in a bit more depth. Um, During those 52 hours, did you go on an emotional and physical journey?
I did. I did. There was a beginning, there was a long middle, and then there was a very quick end. You know, and the most fun I had was during that long middle. Um, there were a couple of runners there from Sweden, Torbjorg and Anna, and they were fantastic. And I ended up running a lot of loops with them, and I made some incredible friendships. And we talked about everything from our favorite meals that we prepare for our families to anything. I was watching Anna running and swinging off of trees out there and utilizing rocks to pivot herself, and I was thinking, wow, like she's like a ballet dancer out there. Anna Carlson, she's spectacular. She's coming back this year, and I think she's going to do great things. But you know, yeah, the kind of the ups and downs, when there weren't a lot of downs, I'll be honest with you. There were just really good experiences, one after the next, after the next, after the next, and you kind of take every loop for what it is. I always said, you know, like even Maggie at the end, she's like, Dave, you have to sign a mental contract with me that we're going to be out here till 72 hours. You and I are going to do this. And I was like, Maggie, I can't do that. I know that I'm going to get up and do the next one. I guarantee you that. But that's all I can think about right now is do this loop, finish the loop, and get up for the next one. That's just it. So yeah, I think all the kind of spiritual experiences, all the really just meaningful experiences. There were almost just too many to count. It was a windstorm picking up, a rainstorm here, getting onto the night, being bored in the middle of the night and exhausting my phone because I was calling all my friends and just to say hi. It was different. There was something different every loop.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, your sort of rest strategies probably going to be quite a bit different to the others because you had so much damn time
Hmm.
compared to the other three that I've spoken to. What was your routine on the day loops? Now, the day loops, for those people who weren't aware, at Big's Backyard was an actual trail, whereas the night loops was just pretty much a flat asphalt out and back and quite fast. So on the day loops, you're getting a good sort of 10, 12 minutes rest there. What was your routine?
Yeah, so my routine was, because yeah, you're absolutely right. The course is a little bit trickier. You have to watch your feet. You also can't be as efficient because you have to pick up your feet. There's a lot of loose rocks and a lot of leaves on the ground covering a lot of roots. So, I end up having a number of yard sales out there just falling over, and because you try to skim your feet again above the ground, and no, you got to pick your knees up. You most certainly do. During the day, the first 12 hours, you just go out on the course. I've never been out on the course before. And so you just go check it out. You go and mark all the spots, the birthing tree, the split tree, the V tree, the birthing tree. Yeah, sorry, that's inappropriate.
Story for
You
another
know,
time then.
yeah. And so then there's a hill, and then you drop down, then you got the Green Balls Hill, and then you have the canyons, and so every time you look down and you mark it, mentally in your head, you're like, okay, I'm at 14 minutes and 30 seconds in, and then you just you go through that over and over and over again because you have to become intimate with this course because you need, there might be a lap that you're going to need to know where you're at and when you're at it. And at the end, I did need to know. So really, what I did was at the end of every loop in the first 12 hours during the day loops is I would just sit down in my chair and I would recline back. I had one of those what do they call those things? Those reclining chairs. Yeah,
People in
and
the
so
reclining chair.
Yeah, it's like a sunbathing
Oh
chair,
yeah, yeah.
and that's great because then you can end up getting up and sitting down on your own accord, but just pushing your legs in. And yeah, I would just lie there and I would do nothing. Now I would drop into a meditation
Hmm.
every single time. The very first thing I'd do is I'd do my box breathing, and then followed by a breath of 8 seconds and then out for 12 seconds, and really try to stimulate my vagus nerve. Just try to really stimulate that, that rest and digest response, because every single time when I would be out on the course, about 5 to 10 minutes when I had 5 or 10 minutes left on every single loop, that's when I would eat. Um, so what I would do is I would eat, a lot of food, typically 400 to 500 calories, right then and there. My favorite was a pie in a bag. So you stuff pie into a Ziploc bag and you just like squish it out into your mouth,
Okay.
and it's delicious. Who doesn't like pie? And so really the rest breaks were digestive breaks. I think the science is pretty solid that when you end up dropping your heart rate, if I'm running and my heart rate's at 140 beats a minute and I'm trying to digest 500 calories, it has a lot of fat and protein in it. It's going to take a while. You drop your heart rate down to 60 beats a minute, 50 beats a minute, and it's it's fast. You can end up digesting that food while you're resting. So I wouldn't really typically eat. I would take in fluids. I wouldn't really take fluids out on the course with me. I would drink fluids there. But really, my rest during the day and night was really a digestive break. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. So then the night loops were even faster. You're getting 15 up to 20. There are a couple there that were faster, that getting more than 20 minutes rest. Was it pretty much the same thing every time coming into camp? It was just the same routine.
Yeah, you bet. And yeah, you end up getting into a really strong routine, especially at night, because it gets quiet, right? And so I remember the very first night I went out there and I ran, I think it was like 41 or 42 minutes on a loop. And I really felt like I was breaking. I was like trying to slow myself down. And I remember I took a heart rate monitor out onto the next loop just to see where I was at. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm running, way below that zone 1 threshold, like way below. So then my next loop, I decided, okay, you know what, I'm gonna actually go and run kind of, that mid zone 1. So it's still very, you're not producing more lactic acid than you're burning, and then you're able to excrete. And so at that point, I think I ran a 35-minute loop. Um, and I came back and I was like, wow, okay, I've got 25 minutes here. Um, and so I remember that was the very first time that I remember putting my headphones on and with the noise cancellation sound, and then my eye cover, and I remember lying down and saying, oh, I've got 25 minutes, I might as well try to sleep. I've had issues within 6 day racing before where I don't sleep, and it's my Achilles heel. And I thought this was gonna be the end of me for backyard. Like I can't sleep during these things. My coach told me that I got 15 minutes sleep.
Wow.
Like I started snoring immediately, and in fact I was kind of moving and shaking like I was having a dream. And he woke me up and he said, "Wakey, wakey," and um, yeah, right before the second whistle, the two whistles. And I was just like, did I fall asleep? And he's like, damn straight you did. And he said, you slept for 15 minutes. So I got up and I felt groggy, like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, I slept for 15 minutes. And then I was like, I got to do another one of those because that felt really good. And this puts me in a significant advantage over everybody else if I can do this.
Mm.
So then I think it did like a 37 or 38-minute loop, the next one. And it was, yeah, another great sleep. But then I got thinking, okay, well, my zone 1, do I really want to be pressing it? So then I kind of fell back to the 40 minutes, but knowing very well that I was going to sleep, that was a big confidence bump.
So now getting close to that 48 hours, everything's going really well. At 44, you pulled out more than 20 minutes rest there again at 44 hours. But then at 48, You finish the nighttime loops, get back onto the daytime loops. What happened in the last 4 hours?
So I made a mistake. And I think it's pretty safe to say that me and my coach made a mistake. And when he went public with it afterwards, he got some flack for saying, and everybody was like, "Oh, what a bad coach." I'm like, no, we all make mistakes. Um, I think my problem is that I seem to think that I make good decisions when I've been out drinking all night with my friends, and that when I'm running, 2 or 3 days into an ultra marathon, and you don't, you don't make good decisions. Your critical thinking skills are, your executive thinking skills are off. And so I came back right around 45, 46 loops in, and I remember talking to my coach Travis, and I said, "I'm peeing a lot out there, and I'm getting frustrated. Like I just like I'm peeing a lot." And he looked at my bottle, and he would always prepare, and he would say, "Yeah, you know what? You probably are drinking a little bit too much. So maybe just pull that back a little bit." And so I think what happened from that point on was I just sipped my bottle, and immediately I was rewarded because I wasn't peeing as often. I was like, "Perfect! I didn't pee this loop. This is great." My executive thinking skills and yours right
Yeah.
now, Sam, are your spidey sense is like, nope, nope, stop and go pee, right? Like if you have a delivery system, it's good, right? Um, and so I think that right around that 51 hours, I don't know, it was right around the 50-hour mark. I came back, and I still think I did my loop in like 50 minutes or something or other.
Mm.
It was still a reasonable time. And I whispered to Travis, because there were camera crews around, and I whispered to Travis, I said, I'm in serious trouble. And he says, what's up? And I said, I can't see straight. My heart rate's through the roof. And my legs feel heavy. And it happened within like a 5-minute period out there. And he says, okay, I think that you might be dehydrated. Let's double up. And so we did, and I carried fluid with me on the next loop. But that next loop was hell. And that was that loop that Maggie came in first, and then Will. And they were like, hey, where's Dave? And I was in the woods, and I heard 2 whistles, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to get back in time. And then 2 whistles. And I think I got back with about 30 seconds, 40 seconds
Yes.
left. And it was, I wasn't pissed off. I was just so out of it, And I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, dehydration takes 3 hours to fix. I'm doing all the right things. I know that Travis is going to have all the bottles ready for me to just go. This too shall pass, and I'm going to get back into a groove again. I just, have to come in under the hour for 3 hours straight. And the next loop, I didn't make it back in time. That was a 53rd loop, and that wasn't going to happen. So, I'm not upset. It's just, such a stupid error. I'm really happy with the first, 50 loops or 51 loops. I really do think that somebody's going to go over 100 hours this year, because it's just so doable.
Well, let's talk about that. Now you're backing up again for Big's Backyard 2020. Uh, there's Will, Katie, Maggie, and yourself, but also you've got Johan, you've got Courtney DeWalter lining up this year,
Yeah.
and also some other absolutely amazing runners from right around the world. This is truly shaping up to be the all-star last one standing.
Absolutely.
So to get, I had a chat to Lazarus Lake only about a week ago, and we're actually talking about this. And I asked him, if uh, he thinks that someone can get to 100 hours, and he's not so sure. But you obviously have different thoughts. Now, how and what's it going to take to get to 100?
It's going to take a community, I think. The problem is when it starts to dwindle down, from 10 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1, you start to look at your chances. 3 people left, there's a 33% chance you're going to win. 2 people left, there's a 50% chance. And I think it all depends. How do I say this? There are giants amongst the giants in our sport, right? And like another guy who's coming next year, Olivier Leblanc. Olivier's spectacular, and he's never run this before, and he's gonna knock the socks off of this. Camille Herron just broke the 24-hour world record by how many miles? I don't even know, 6 miles. Like,
Wow.
And her speed is spectacular, and her mindset is even better. So what Laz has created here is drawing the attention from the best. And, I have a feeling what we used to think was amazing, just like with marathon times back in the 1940s and so forth, it's going to become next level because of the interest of the complete outliers out there. I would love to think that I could fight alongside of them after the 50, 60, 70, 80 hour marks. But I really do think what the problem is we need 4 runners still at 72 hours. And I think that's going to happen this year. Yeah, you end up having 4 runners past 72 hours. One another are going to be giving strength to one another. When we were out there with Maggie and Kate and Will, Torbjorg and Anna and everybody, a whole lot of them. It's funny. It's one of those things that these are your competitors. Like you want to beat these people, but yet you don't want to see them go because you formed this incredible friendship, and they're at war with you. Not with you, but with you.
Yes.
It's a pretty cool, weird dynamic. And I think that Meg, even when Will dropped out in the end, and she was pretty, she didn't celebrate. And I think it was because there was an element of concern for Will, which is really odd, but yet I completely understand.
And I guess, the beauty of Last One Standing is that it's everybody taking themselves to their absolute limit on the day,
Mm-hmm.
except for the winner. And as great as it is to win an event like a Big's Backyard, there also must be for the winner a sense of disappointment in not reaching that limit on that particular day. And particularly for Maggie, looking so damn strong the entire time, there must
Mm-hmm.
be a sense of, well, I was looking forward to 72 hours.
Yeah, I guarantee you, she wasn't happy with her 60. And but you're only as strong as your dancing partner. And next year, she's going to have a lot bigger dancing partners to dance with. It's going to be quite a community at the end. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I think it's a weird event, right? Because you're happy, but then you're upset. You haven't reached your limit, but yet you won the race. You're the last person standing. I don't know. I have a feeling that when this race gets even more and more and more popular, because it is. I'm even a race director of a race up here in Canada, and it sells out. It's 175 runners. We're going to be able to get psychologists to try to delve into this of like, okay, why is this the last man standing? And when I say man, I see woman or man. And what is the attraction to it, and then what's the disappointment as well too of those winners, that they weren't allowed to run another lap. Yeah,
Yes.
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I had an interesting chat to Will Hayward a few days ago, and he was talking about the sense of pressure that he felt when you exited the race. And he said when there were 3 of us, it was fine because Dave was going to be able to continue on. But then, because as I think a lot of people realize, he was spent at 36 hours, and for him
Mm-hmm.
to get all the way to 59 was, a superhero effort. But so the sense for that second person, because the race requires at least 2 people to go the distance. For that person who finishes second, there must be a huge amount of pressure on them.
Absolutely. Yeah, because in backyard we call it the assist, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the person in second place knows that they're going to be in second place. So why why continue on, right? And of course, we all play games out there, and if Maggie and Will and Katie told you that they weren't, they were. I was playing games with them, and you almost want to put yourself out there that you're comfortable, you're happy, you're going to be here all day, and that nobody's showing weakness. Because the moment that you show that weakness, they know that they got you, and it's going to give them a lift, right? And so it's so funny, time and time again, you end up looking at the starting corral and you say, hey, where did so and so go? They look so good. Because nobody really looks bad before they exit. They all look good. It's really,
Yes.
really, really spectacular.
Yeah, and it's exactly what the other three were saying about you, just how great you looked the entire time until the end. And
Mm.
yeah.
Well,
Now, yeah, sorry, go.
well, there was even one part, and there's a French documentary that's going to be coming out here fairly soon. They actually show this in the documentary from this year, and I've got a pretty good stomach, so I was eating a lot of really kind of odd foods and different things, and there was even one time where I brought a candy apple to the start line, and even Maggie says, "Hey, are you going to eat that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." Did I really need to bring that to the start line? No. um was it kind of hey, I'm comfortable here, look what I'm eating, I'm having a good time? Because what when do you eat a candy apple? When you're at the fair with your family, right?
Yeah.
Not when you're at a race. So we were all playing those games, and so maybe I was playing them a little bit more than the others, but yeah.
Fantastic. Now we've got the Australian Last One Standing coming up in August this year here in Brisbane in Queensland. Now
Fantastic.
we've got about 220 runners turning up to this thing, so it's going to be one of the largest Last One Standings around the world. Uh, and with 220 runners, there's going to be a huge amount of first timers. What tips have you got for the first timers doing this backyard ultra?
Yeah, so all you got to do is your whole race is so I'll say two tips. Your entire race is 6.7 kilometers, or 4.18 miles. That's all it is. Concern yourself with the moment. Some would argue that flow state is not fearing the future, and not being worried, and being controlled by your concern about the past, but living in the moment, and running with no mind, just existing in that space. And your space is doing one lap. That's all it is. And you think about 6.7 kilometers in an hour, that's not that fast. Like it's a reasonable thing to do. But what you need to do is you just need to execute every loop and show up again. Laz says time and time again that the biggest race isn't on the course itself. It's the 6-7 feet between your chair and the start line. And I absolutely believe that to be true, because you have so many people that would sit down and then they don't get back up, and then they regret that decision
Mm.
20 minutes later. Number two, and I think this is the biggest piece of advice, is how do I say this? You program yourself for success. So um, every with 3 minutes left before every single loop, Laz will blow the whistle 3 times, giving a 3-minute warning. Two times for 2 minutes, one time for 1 minute, and then the bell rings. I heard Laz time and time again, because we had him up to Canada as well too, and he talked about that whistle and how people wanted to hang him from that whistle, and I got thinking, okay, how, that whistle is so much of this race, because it tells you about the imminent nature of what's about to happen. But how do you respond to that whistle? So all your runners, I would suggest doing this. Is what I did for about 4 months before Big's Backyard, was I would carry a whistle around my house, and I would blow my whistle and I would kiss my children. I would blow a whistle and I would eat dark chocolate. I would blow a whistle and I would kiss my wife. my wife said, "Don't bring that whistle into the bedroom." And so Pavlov's dog theory, right? So if you ring a bell and you feed a dog, it salivates. You ring a bell, you feed the dog, it salivates. You ring a bell and you kick the dog. You ring a bell, you kick a dog. What's it going to do? It's going to cower. You cannot cower with the hearing of that bell. You have to hear that bell and salivate. You have to lean in on your chair. My coach would wake me up, about 10 seconds before the second bell would ring, or sorry, the second whistle would ring, because he wanted me to hear it. Because, I've been working on this, and this was a key part of my training. Yeah, get out and do long runs, get out and do your speed work, get out and do whatever. But if you're going to cower, you're done, right? You have to lean forward. You have to accept what you're doing as being a meaningful experience and something that you want more than life itself. That I'm a runner. I need to be running on the course. I can't be sitting here anymore because I'm not a sitter. And so, creating moments like that in response to the whistle, I think is paramount for success in an event like this.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. Now, I think a lot of people sort of look at that and now just change their mindset, and not just here in Brisbane. This is going to be watched by people all over the world, and for people to change their thought process on that whistle process and the bell, I think it's really going to have people turning up to the corral in a very positive mind frame rather than just going, "Oh God, I've got another bloody lap to go."
Well, and it's so funny, even at Bigs, you have the cheerleaders, right?
Mm.
And they get up there and and they're lovely girls. They're just the nicest people, but they get up there and they're saying all these terrible things like, "Hey, you should go sit down right now because there's nothing but pain and suffering ahead of you. Yay!" And they're cheering. And it's so funny because everyone around you is speaking that same language. Like, this is painful, this is suffering, this is agony. What are you doing? You're crazy for even doing this. Now, the number one control that we have in the world is what messages do we allow to come in and believe, and what other ones do we just hear and disregard? And so, Laz throws everything at you. He even puts a sign up on the bloody finish line. There is no finish. Like, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
That message is everywhere. That whistle is every hour. Well, there's 3 whistles every hour. And so those messages are there. What are you going to do with them? How do you translate that negative, with that common thing that 99.9% of the population typically sees something like this as being painful, suffering, agony? The winner of your event is going to have to translate that over to something positive.
Mm. Now it's interesting because sort of it is very much, and the cheerleaders is very much part of the Lazarus Lake show. It is what he's known.
Oh
for.
yeah.
And let's go break some bones, and some absolutely beautifully poetic quotes that always come out. However, I do have a great sense that Laz wants to see people achieve longer and longer and longer. As much as there are the cheerleaders, he does truly, I think, want to see people go long. And towards the end, do you get a sense of support coming from Laz?
Yeah, absolutely. If you could pick up about somebody's body language and their body energy, that guy was the father figure for every runner that was left standing that did their absolute best. At the tail end, when I ended up dropping out and I gave him a hug, he squeezed pretty good and he didn't want to let go. It was a pretty emotional thing for him, and as it was for me. And he's a wizard. He's a master at creating these opportunities for us to go and truly surprise ourselves. And isn't that exactly what a father does? Is these life lessons really aren't handed to you on a silver platter. You have to go out and earn them, and you have to the very best ones you earn the hard way, in my opinion, as a father. Where you end up learning these spectacular things by continually throwing your bucket down into the well and constantly retrieving, because I think that one of Laz's thoughts, might be, and I mean, this is just me getting into his brain, is he wants us to find the depth of our well, and what's going to run out first, the length of the rope or the bottom of the well. I think that's Laz. That's Barkley Marathons. That's Big's Backyard. That's Vol State. That's Laz at his core.
Wow. Now we've got Laz coming out here to Brisbane for the last one standing in August. Now he can't just come out here on a holiday. We've got to get him doing some jobs. He's going to be part of the crew. What do you reckon he's going to be good at? What should we get him working on?
So number one, when you see him at the airport, the guy drinks a phenomenal amount of Dr. Pepper. Did you know that?
Yeah? Yes.
Oh yeah, he loves Dr. Pepper. So you want to get him in a good mood? Yeah, get him a case of Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
Absolutely. The trouble is that we had a lot of young and attractive female volunteers, and it was funny. He was always telling stories, and it was funny. Like he's a storyteller, and so I think that the best way to keep Laz busy is have people coming and asking him advice about certain things. You almost put a sign around him. Put a sign around his neck and say free advice.
Information center.
Absolutely. Can I tell you a quick story about one of my runners?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this young guy, I feel bad for this guy as well too. I should reach out to this guy. Probably 30 years old and just a really intense, really happy going guy. His goal was to go out and run 12 hours on my course. He ended up running 8 hours because it was terrible weather. A horrible rainstorm. But he ended up getting done his 8 and he was so happy. And he came over to me and he said, "Dave, can you introduce me to Laz?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I went over and introduced the two. And so after about 2 minutes of talking, he said, "Laz, how long you been married to Sandra?" And I think he said something like 45 or 50 years, or a long time, right? And he said, "So I'm getting married next week. Do you have any advice for me?" And Laz pauses and then he says, "Okay, yeah. So what you got to do is you got to take a rope no longer than this." And he says, "Well, you tie the one side around your ankle, and tie the other side around a badger." And he says, "The only difference between that and marriage is that after 6 weeks, the badger will let you pet it." And so, I'm thinking, oh no, this is terrible advice. Don't listen to this guy. But he loves these odd, strange stories. He has 1,000 of them, and just get him busy telling stories. He's a storyteller.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're certainly looking forward to it. And Dave, it has been an absolute honor talking to you today on Chats from the Chest Freezer. I love the way you think. You have a beautiful way of speaking and also thinking about the world. So, Dave, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Sam. Thanks for everything.
Excellent, Dave. Thank you very much, mate. I absolutely love that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, like I said, I love the way that you think. It's very much the same way I think. And when you're getting out there and trying to do things out of the ordinary, you do need to think that way. And yeah, you need to be. You always need to be positive about it. You can't see the negative in everything.
No, absolutely. And I think that, things like backyard, everybody, wants to hear about the pain and the suffering and but I think there's a different side to this. There's a transcendence that happens, right? And I think that's what we're all after out there.
Yeah, when I ran last one standing last year, it was one of the best things I've ever done. The furthest I'd ever run was a half marathon. And on the day I got 87 k's, 66 kilometers longer than I'd ever run before. And I ran that
fantastic?
I ran that half back when I was about 15. I did 2 months of running prep for it because I was in the middle of some heavy training for an ice mile swim.
Mm-hmm.
And just the sense of the whole ritual and the where you take your body, and not so much your mind with just 13 hours, but you're also having to combat the fatigue and those mental thoughts. Yeah, it is truly one of the best formats of any
Yeah.
sport that I've seen for a very long time, and I think it's why it's now just exploding. It's in, I think, about 40 countries now. Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's gonna have to get organized, and because this is gonna get even bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, Especially this next year when you end up seeing some bigger numbers. Um, yeah, yeah. Have you? Well, no, you wouldn't have seen that. There's a documentary that Fabian, the film, he was a French film director.
mm.
During Backyard this year, he ended up producing a movie, and it's going to be out in about a month or so.
Okay, cool.
And it's spectacular. He did a really good job with that. It mostly follows Guillaume, the fellow
Yeah.
from France. But then, of course, when he drops out and starts following other characters and things, it does a really good job of telling the story of exactly what this is and what we're doing out there.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't sort of capture the attention of something like Iron Man, which turns it into a corporate fuck up.
And I just can't. When I end up having Laz up here, I asked him about that. And I said, like his race was like $120.
Mm.
And I said, you can charge a lot of money for this. And he says, Dave, I'm gonna charge what's a reasonable price for this event. So the price is going up next year, and it's because we need more porta potties.
Yeah.
That's it. So he's not pocketing any more of the money. He's just putting it towards more porta potties, which is, I completely agree. If you need more porta potties, we'll pay for that. That's yeah. He's a very interesting man. He's not looking to make millions and millions of dollars. And I'm really happy that kind of this franchise is belongs to a man like that, because it's gonna keep its grassroots.
Yeah, and I hope it stays that way, and nobody tries to sort of take over the concept and make some big money out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. I really appreciate it, mate. And good luck with your run in May.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I'm
and when's your race?
Beg your pardon?
Yeah. And when's the race down in Brisbane?
August 13, I think it is. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll look forward to following that as well too. That'll be great.
Thanks, mate.
Perfect. Yeah, anytime, Sam.
Thanks, Dave. See ya.